Right now, even as we speak, there are hundreds of thousands of copies of the Gospel of Luke ready to be packed and shipped to all corners of Australia. There is what's called an answers army of everyday Australians ready to deliver these Gospels to households just like those in your street or community. It's a groundbreaking initiative of Answers in Genesis, and they are wanting to invite you to serve your community delivering Gospels to every house. Hannah Moriarty is coordinating the rollout of the Gospel of Luke initiative at Answers in Genesis, and Hannah's joining us. Hey Hannah, welcome along to 2020.
Hi there, Neil. Wonderful to be here.
Hannah, recap for us. This is a very exciting initiative. How does all this work?
That's a big question. Well, I'm not the only one coordinating. I have some key staff members and we're working together. We're working hard to get what we hope will be a 500,000 Gospels of Luke out across Australia. So, Neil, there are 9.5 million households in Australia, and the big vision we have under Martin Isles' leadership is to see a gospel in every single one of those houses eventually.
And I know that so many listeners will appreciate when an initiative like this comes. You've got to have every hand up now to actually make it a success. So a Gospel of Luke for every home, and you've got estimated that 500,000 of those are going to be necessary.
That's right. That's what we're starting with. So we have some wonderful volunteers that have already signed up. And as you've mentioned, our volunteers are gathering, and they're called our Answers Army. And so we are coordinating those volunteers. We're currently running some training sessions to help equip our volunteers for that distribution. And we're also developing some really key distribution software. And so that software is going to help our volunteers to select their neighbourhood. They'll receive maps through that distribution software and see where they can begin to letterbox those Gospels. That software will also help us to gather testimonies following the distribution about people's experiences. So it's a big operation, Neil, as you can imagine.
And, you know, I mentioned the Answers Army in the introduction there. And really, when we're talking about an Answers Army, we're talking about people who will want to put their hand up for a gospel initiative. And this is a pure gospel initiative because you want to get the Gospel of Luke into people's hands, but an Answers Army to make that happen. And I know you've got to start, and you know you've got trainings that are going on, right. But you know, how does that army look at the end of the day?
When we look out at what's happening in the world, and particularly across our nation, just everyday Australians, we all can feel quite disheartened at the state of affairs, can't we? And as Christians, we know that the answer is the hope of Christ found in his word. So we sense that if we want to see culture change, we need to gift people with the gospel, the saving message of Jesus. So we have the Gospel of Luke, and I guess we've started with developing what that gospel, that gift going into people's letterboxes might look like.
And you know, over the years, some of us will be old enough to remember when there's been various single gospels that have been handed out to people, you know, and I think I can remember one like the Gospel of John and being handed out, you know, en masse. Here we have the Gospel of Luke and, you know, AIG, Answers in Genesis, big and global in impact. You've clearly got a good deal on these, but tell us about this Gospel of Luke. Is there a particular translation? Give us a description of what it looks like.
Yeah, well, we've been really blessed. There's a group called 20Twenty Publishing. John 2016 is the reference there. They're a wonderful publishing group. They actually gifted 10,000 Bibles for us for our Living in Babylon tour, which took place earlier this year, because they could see the value of ensuring that every person who attended our Living in Babylon tour events to walk away with a Bible in hand. And we heard beautiful stories out of that, people taking that Bible and giving it to loved ones who didn't know Christ, etc. So 2016 have been the group that we're partnering with. We've worked with them to develop how this gospel might look and feel. The translation is the the Living Standard Bible, the Legacy Standard, Bible, which is a wonderful translation that is very robust in terms of its historical accuracy and the translation itself. The gospel itself, the internal, we've actually had printed as a reader's version. So, and you've got a copy there, Neil, which is great in hand. Those are hot property because we've just been sent 30 sample pieces. And so if you open that up, you can see that there are no numbers for chapters or verses. And we've actually had those removed to create a reader's version so that if someone is picking up and opening this gospel for the first time, maybe they've never even opened a Bible, it will be more like reading a novel. So it will be a little more natural to begin to read the story of Jesus Christ. So that's 316's Publishing's contribution there. And then, of course, the cover design. I'm not sure if you want to have a look at that now, Neil.
Well, I'm holding a copy of it, and I've got to say, and some listeners will be particularly impressed. And you mentioned it's the Legacy Standard Bible, and it's the reader's version, so it doesn't have the chapter and verse. And I've got to say, what is really good is that the print is not too small. It's actually quite a good size, easy to read version. So the idea of this, of course, is you want to get this into the hands of people who are not familiar with the Bible, people who perhaps have never darkened the door of a church, but they're going to get this and it's going to be delivered by someone in a local church in their community, and they're going to have an opportunity to read something that can be life-changing.
Absolutely. That's right, Neil. And so we felt that the internal, of course, is the most important, the scriptures themselves, but to get people curious about what's inside this little book that turns up in their mailbox, we really took time to develop the aesthetic. So that cover design was really important. And it's actually a pretty great story. We had a local designer come up with 4 different designs, and we, Dan Flynn, who is our executive director, had the brilliant idea to share those 4 designs with our supporters. So we sent out those 4 cover designs to our Answers Army community, and we asked for a vote. And the cover design that came back most popular was what we're calling the Mountains and Valleys cover there. So it's a beautiful aesthetic. There's lovely imagery of mountain peaks and some valleys there, and then a star, like a star of Bethlehem, that's sort of just sitting there at the top of one of those peaks. And you'll see, Neil, that the title on that gospel is actually just the word truth, which is very striking and bold. And then in finer print, it says, as told by Luke. And we've used a lovely gold foil, so it looks really special. And then the overall gospel colour in the cover is a rich crimson colour. So when you see this gospel, it really catches your eye. We wanted it to initiate curiosity in the receiver, and also to look like something far too good to just discard or throw in the bin when it turns up in your mailbox. It's certainly not junk mail. It really communicates gift. It looks like I've been gifted something special. And so that was our desire in the aesthetic of the cover design.
You know, I might say it's got an air of beauty about it and an air of quality. So for listeners who are thinking, what sort of Bible would I be putting in the hands of my neighbours? I think it's one that you can actually be quite proud to be able to give as a gift. And mentioned that it is the Legacy Standard Bible. And as I understand it, the Legacy Standard is one of those, it's a fairly close literal translation. So for people who've been used to the idea of a King James or a New King James, it's a little bit similar along those lines. But you'll know that the quality of it has been chosen by some of the people, no doubt, connected with Answers in Genesis. And that's the organisation that Ken Ham, the Australian creation speaker, is part of the foundation of. Hey, the project itself, when are you hoping this is going to be launched, Hannah?
Thanks, Neil. Well, there's been lots of groundwork happening, but we're excited that all that groundwork is getting ready to look very fruitful. So it's a big moment for our team. Those Gospels look like they're going to be landing in early November, and then we'll be kicking off with an official launch day for that Gospel distribution in mid to late November, which is so exciting for us. We want to really mark that time as a special moment for all those individual volunteers volunteers and groups of volunteers and churches around the country to clear their Saturday and get ready to hit the streets of their neighbourhood. In the lead up to that gospel landing date in early November, we are having regular training sessions for our Answers Army, and those have been so encouraging, Neil.
And no doubt the sorts of people who you'll be interested to talk to, not just people in big churches, but small churches, home groups. You're looking for some sort of a project to get a shipment of these and to be strategically minded to get these gospels into letterboxes around your entire community. So, but how would a church get involved? Do they simply connect with Answers in Genesis, register, and you'll be sending out a whole lot of these? Yes. How does it work?
Yeah, great question, Neil. We're so encouraged to have lots of individuals and church groups contacting us with that very question. So the best way for a church to get involved is to identify one or two individuals or more than that who will sort of be the key church contacts, and they simply need to join us by signing up as a volunteer for the gospel distribution. So when they sign up, they'll begin to receive our emails and the information about the training sessions that are happening online, and they'll also be able to connect with us via the gospel distribution software when that is launched as well. So that's the best way for churches to get involved, is to select who their representative would be, and that rep will sort of be across all the detail and then be able to lead the group in their church.
For someone who says, but Hannah, wait a minute, just handing out a Bible might not be enough. How do we connect with those people once they've received it? If someone reads this and says, how am I going to take this steps further? Yeah. How am I going to connect with a journey towards salvation? Yes. How am I going to connect with bigger elements of truth? How do you do that?
Absolutely. Great question, Neil. That's been really important to us. There is something, of course, special about putting a gospel in someone's mailbox or in their hand. And I will let you know, we have whole prayer teams that are praying for these gospels, even now as they're being created and as our volunteers are getting ready. We are believing that the Lord's presence will be on those gospels, that He will even be preparing the hearts of those in the homes that are to receive them. But in practical terms, you'll see, Neil, on the back of the cover of that sample gospel you're holding, there's a QR code, and I think it says "Your questions answered here."
It doesn't, yes. But it says there's a website that people can go to as well.
That's right. Sorry, that was an upgrade we had on the next gospel. But there is also a URL, and that is gospel.org.au. So that QR code and the URL that is listed there, that will take you to a custom designed webpage. That webpage is not full of marketing, but instead some really important elements that will help someone who is curious about Christianity, about the salvation message, about this gospel that they've received. And so there'll be some key elements on that webpage. Firstly, there'll be a recorded salvation message. I think Martin Iles will do that recorded message, and it will just be a 3 to 5 minute message that will be a really lovely, easy way for people who have perhaps never heard the saving message of Jesus Christ to hear it in a very simple and concise way. Then we will have a few other options for that receiver to look at. One of those being the Word for Today, which is a Vision Media initiative, a really valuable initiative where people can easily sign up, and incredibly, it's entirely free to sign up and receive a daily email with a devotion, or you will know this, Neil, better than myself even, but a devotion in the mail. And so we wanted to give those receivers that option. And then finally, that webpage will have a Contact Us form. So if people have more questions, they're asking about how to get connected with a local church, they want to share their testimony around receiving this gospel, or they're just looking to be connected with other people of Christian faith in their area, we'll have a team ready to answer those communications as they land through that contact form. So that QR code is really really key in ensuring those receivers have the option to continue on in the salvation journey.
So it's an attractive Gospel of Luke, and November is the time when the whole thing really hits the ground running. You're building an Answers Army right now, Hannah, and for people thinking this is something that we can do in our community, it will put a Gospel of Luke into the hands of people who are your neighbours, not only just next door, but throughout the streets of your town. You might want to be a part of this. It will also give those options there for people to take these things a little further, to hear a gospel presentation from Martin Isles, who is a trusted name. And no doubt you'll know Martin from all of his years at the Australian Christian Lobby, and you know now that he is the CEO of Answers in Genesis and spends time here in Australia and in the United States. Access to Vision Radio and the Word for Today becoming something that becomes a discipleship tool. So a really wonderful opportunity to be a part of this. You're building an army right now.
That's right.
Lots of people will be wanting to get on board with this, putting their hand up and saying, yep, I can do my part. Is there a need for one or two special friends who might be able to help with a few dollars?
Oh, absolutely, Neil. Yes. So, there's lots of ways you can get involved in this exciting project. One would be volunteering. You can, of course, visit our website, and I will repeat that again later on, but it is answersingenesis.org.au. And so when you visit our website, there's a big tile at the very top of the website that says distribute the gospel. If you follow that link, it will take you through to all the ways that you can support this project. And as I said, one is volunteering to be someone who distributes gospels throughout their neighborhood. We also have the option for you to join us as a prayer partner, which is so key in a project like this. And we have some very passionate prayers and a prayer troop who are meeting regularly to pray. And so we're always grateful for more to join us in that. And as you mentioned, yes, dollars are always helpful. We do have a significant funding gap that we still need to meet. And so as people give generously to this project, it just allows us to get more gospels into homes. It costs about $1.50 per gospel. So if you do the math on that and think there's 9.5 million households for us to hopefully distribute to, but even with our first initiative looking at 500,000, those dollars do add up. So we're grateful for any support, volunteering, prayer, and of course, investing in this.
And I might mention something that's coming up tomorrow night, because with your Answers Army, you need to do some training to be able to be really effective in being a part of the whole initiative. So tomorrow night, there is a training session. It's online. No doubt people will connect there on the website, answersingenesis.com.au, and it'll be facilitated by the training instructor, who will be well known to Vision listeners too, Stu Miller from Train to Proclaim. So that's tomorrow night, and you can, I guess, register for that online today. Is that the case?
That's right. Yep. If you do just as I just described and go to our website, if you can't remember the web address, just simply Google Answers in Genesis Australia and it will take you there. If you sign up as a volunteer before tomorrow evening, we'll send you a special invite to that Answers Assembly training meeting where we have Stu Miller, the evangelism lecturer and trainer, joining us, and it will be such an encouraging time. We've had hundreds join us over the previous weeks for those trainings, Neil, so it's a really riveting gathering.
It's a great initiative. Answersingenesis.com.au. Hannah Moriarty is coordinating the rollout of the Gospel of Luke initiative. I look forward to another update sometime soon, but thanks so much for sharing these things with listeners today, Hannah.
Thanks, Neil. It's been a joy.